Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, taking issue with the first Rogue miniseries. The untouchable X-Woman went on her yearly trip to see the first victim of her mutant powers, Cody. Unfortunately, by the time she got to the facility where he was resting, he'd already been abducted by the Assassin's Guild under orders of their new leader, the vengeful Belladonna. And as it happens, she's also targeting her technically still husband, Remy LeBeau. This cover sees our heroine in full X-garb, surrounded by smoke and people with swords. It's actually really good, an example of what awaits within without really giving too much away. Though one thing that always struck me as just a bit different was how this glare was drawn. Maybe it was the outline kinda making it seem like it's part of the weapon. Anyway, we begin in the assassin's mansion in New Orleans, where Tante Mari, a healer from the Gambit mini, tends to Cody as best she can, but insists to Belladonna he needs a doctor's care. Which is kinda weird when you consider how boastful she was of her skills during the Gambit miniseries. She was caring for comatose Belladonna just fine, even though she admitted that she was deteriorating. Here it seems like she thinks there's something someone with a medical degree and training can do that she can't. Or maybe I'm just being snarky. Donna's not going to take any responsibility for the boy's death, and saying he isn't going anywhere, so Maddie should just do as she's ordered for now. Maddie's known the assassin leader since she was a child, and isn't letting a new title intimidate her, pleading to let Cody go, but Belle tells her that if she won't fall in line, she can just leave. Tante leaves,
but only because I choose to,
saying someone is going to stop her, which of course Belle is counting on because evil plan. Meanwhile, Rogue is flying over Mississippi, narration noting how she long ago accepted how different she was, but found acceptance amongst the X-Men. Sure, there was also the fact that she was an adversary to heroic characters for a while, and that she was traumatized by absorbing Carol Danvers' powers seemingly permanently, but I guess all those details were just distracted from her current emotional quandary. She crash lands near a stream, fatigue setting in, possibly from her fight last issue, and she finds herself torn between warning Gambit of his wife's intentions and finding Cody as soon as possible. And that's when the water takes the form of Tante Mari. I don't have much time. My powers ain't what they once was. What are your powers? I thought she was a healer of some kind, but apparently she's a psionic waterbender too. Keep in mind, this was before the whole secondary mutation thing took off in the X-Men comics. You know, the one that spontaneously gave Emma Frost her diamond form. Maybe there was some miscommunication between writers or total lack of communication. Anyway, Maddie says she knows of Belle's intentions as well as Rogue's trials, but says Cody will be safe, so the X-Woman should look after her man. And while I have soured on the whole Remy-Rogue relationship, I do find it a little funny how Maddie just shuts down any kind of coyness about who she means by that phrasing. Assassins are zeroing in on LeBeau by Donna's orders, and says that she hasn't been quite right in the head since she woke from her coma. Fortunately, the helpful Hydro woman knows just where to find Gambit. I see. Maddie's mutant powers ambiguity. Never specify her abilities so they can do anything the story needs. Or is that the power of convenience? Great, now I'm confused. Elsewhere in Yawlins, Kendra is visited by Belle, with the external claiming to have been particularly fond of the Assassin's Guild, as if they were her own family. After securing Gambit and Donna's done with him, whatever that means, he'll be handed over to Kendra as agreed, and perhaps she can again be the Assassin's benefactress, and no thieves' guild to concern them. Union disputes, am I right, folks? We jump to Gambit somewhere between New York and Mississippi, 2 days since Rogue took off. He tries distracting himself from wondering if he should have followed her at all by giving directions to a couple lost strangers, all the while watched by assassins led by Gris-Gris. This particular group, according to narration, have become legendary for succumbing to their inner darkness, even feared among their own families.
Which has to be awkward around the holidays. Steve doesn't have any good clothes that aren't stained with blood. Lillian doesn't understand that work talk isn't appropriate for the dinner table when it involves decapitation. And your drunken great-aunt gets startled and absolutely destroys the turkey.
Wouldn't you know it, the ladies are headed to New Orleans. And just as Gambit is talking up his hometown, in particular how it might be best not to mention his name, which, yeah, that's a very whimsical line, his instincts detect something amiss. And if they didn't, that big explosion probably would have tipped him off. We get the title character's POV as she beelines for the source of the blast, arriving in time to help her teammate, having already changed into her uniform.
That does kind of raise a couple of questions, though, when you think about it. She didn't have any baggage with her when we last saw, so did she head back to her hotel after her chat with Aquamatty? I mean, that might seem trivial to want to change clothes in a situation like this, but hey, you gotta stay on brand.
As they fight off the horde, Rogue admits she flew through the night just to save Remy, and he says he was catching up to her for the very same reason.
Why must you turn my office into a house of lies?
You were complaining that you couldn't get close to her on an emotional level, and after you were told to give her space, you chased after her. You had no reason to think she was in danger. This guy's either lying or totally deluded.
Between the two road-tripping bystanders, it seems the driver is overly entranced by the X-Men flirting with each other instead of, driving away when things suddenly get quiet. Gris-Gris, whom Gambit calls a voodoo man, walks up, points, and disappears through the smoke. Possibly just to scare them, according to Remy. Later in New Orleans, I guess the assassins have a teleporter on staff because Gris-Gris is right there next to Belladonna as she confronts Tanti Maddie about helping her enemies, but she intends to be ready for when Rogue arrives.
She may not have been an evil leader for very long, but you gotta admit, Belle's got the cliches aced.
The X-pair have made themselves a campfire, and while LeBeau is being his idea of charming, Rogue just wants to be held. She was worried about being too late to save him, saying that Belle has Cody and threatened them both. She wants Gambit to promise not to join her in New Orleans, as this is about her no longer running from her past, but he does not make that promise. Hours later, he wakes up alone, with Rogue either just taking off, but with the coloring, maybe he's imagining her having flown off while he slept, like it's a memory? I don't know, but after the cliched, "I'm a thief, but you done stole my heart," he prepares to go back on that promise he never actually made. Soon enough, Rogue is already in the French Quarter, musing about never wanting to hurt anyone with her powers, but despite her best efforts, still managing to. She's taken out of her own head by an explosion right in front of her face, because I guess that's how the Assassin's Guild waves you hello. She's surrounded, but figures this may be better than trying to blindly track Belle down, and the issue ends with Rogue ready and raring for a rumble.
I've heard the song It's Raining Men, but this is ridiculous. Next week, we see how Rogue fares fighting Louisiana's top murderers without a teammate to fawn over her. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.